your day today. My name is Patrick O'Connell. I'm super excited today. It is session one of my 2025 webinar series. Um, the series today will be focused on building your acquisition blueprint. And really the goal is to understand, how to get from a structured approach and getting to that LOI. That's ultimately the end goal, etc. Before we do that, I did want to get, an understanding of who's in the audience today. So if you could please answer the polling question, it'd be super helpful. Just trying to see what's in the crowd. Looks like got someone who's actively searching. A lot of people just kind of started off their search, which is awesome. Thank you for that. So who will benefit from this training? People currently in a W-2 role, thinking about making that switch and buying your first business. Investors looking to possibly explore investing in these small to medium-sized business acquisition deals. And really, we're looking to build that acquisition blueprint to make it to the LOI phase. So how do we get there? So here is what I like to call the 6-step process of the acquisition blueprint to secure an LOI. This will highlight this and summarize really what we're going to discuss today. And it's ultimately getting from, box one, which is defining your goals, acquisition goals, and establishing that business buy box, all the way to step 6, which is negotiate and lock in the LOI. Once you have an LOI, you've earned exclusivity and the right to look underneath the hood of a business and really understand, is the business you're buying profitable, and does it have an expected earnings, which makes sense for an investment? I'm going to ask another question for the group. What range of EBITDA are you targeting in your ideal business acquisition? Less than 500,000, over 2 million, or somewhere in between? Or what is EBITDA? Let's keep moving. Patty, give you about 3 more seconds. So it looks like the majority of you were looking for businesses in that 500,000 to $2 million mark, which makes perfect sense for, what I like to call Main Street type deals. So I appreciate your participation. So how do we get there? Really, you want to define clear acquisition goals, set measurable targets, and think to yourself, what kind of business do I want to buy? What type of industry? Choose sectors that might match your skills and target market interest. What type of, business financially am I looking for? Speaking to the polling question, businesses with certain top line revenues, EBITDAs with certain metrics. Geography. Do I care where I find a business? Am I focused solely on Northeast type businesses because I live there? These are the types of questions you need to ask yourself before you begin your Google search or outreach, because you're going to get these questions and there's so many businesses available for sale. Without a clear goal in mind, it will be very challenging to move into those next steps. Before we get too deep, I do always like to emphasize this slide. I love it. This really speaks to, in the world of overthinking and too much planning, in order to successfully buy a business, and I've worked with hundreds of buyers, you need to stop planning and start taking action. Really don't wait for that. Don't wait for the perfect CRM system, etc. Really just pick up the phone and start doing the little things daily, and you'll really get rolling. Um, so, you really, a couple other things like avoid the analysis paralysis trap, understanding that it takes time to absorb lessons and learn throughout the process. Continuing learning is very key in business acquisitions and how you go about searching. So let's create the business buy box. I know what you're thinking. People say, what the heck is a business buy box? Oftentimes, this goes along with your roadmap. It's a 3-step approach that says, how are you going to pay for your business? Who's going to run the business you want to buy? What type of businesses do I want to buy? These are the types of questions you need to start compiling and asking yourself and putting together this 3-step business buy box in order to start looking at businesses that meet this criteria. I will say, at the end of the presentation, I will be giving away the Business Buyer Toolkit, which is some of my best templates and resources. It's a 52-page guide containing letter of LOI templates, networking capital analysis, etc. So make sure you stay towards the end, to get those free templates. So as we're thinking about what's the buy box, I'd like you to take a second and meet Sarah. Sarah was a corporate executive turned new business owner. She came from marketing background, but really wanted to buy a business and kind of start over. She was sick and tired of the quote unquote rat race and really wanted to become a business owner. With specifically, Sarah wanted something in the marketing space. She came from a marketing agency. She knew marketing, but she really didn't know where to start. Sarah took the business roadmap, and within 6 months, she was able to identify a target company, submit an LOI, and 3 months after the LOI, I'm proud to announce that she actually executed a purchase on a digital marketing agency using an SBA 7A loan. So when you think, you hear of all the great stories, Sarah is someone that I hope a lot of you can relate to, because a lot of people I work with come from corporate America and want to use an SBA loan in order to buy a business, which is typically somewhere between $3 and $5 million. I spoke to Sarah a couple of weeks ago, and she says she's laser focused on growing her business, empowering her employees, and giving back to the community. So if you learned nothing today, know that there are people like Sarah out there, and you too can buy your next business using the steps I'm about to say. So you want to build financial readiness. What does that mean? Really, it's a 3-prong. It's comprised of 3 elements. You want to assess capital and ensure you have 10 to 20% of a purchase price available for down payment. Most SBA loans require a minimum of 10%. So it's very critical you have at least this amount available to deploy for your buyer down payment. You want to prepare for lenders. Start planning ahead, compile that personal financial statement, resume, and credit report. because those are things SBA lenders will ask for. Begin to speak with SBA lenders and private investors. The sooner you can establish these relationships, the better, because these lenders get inquiries daily from dozens of searchers. So putting a face to a name is critical when you do find a deal, so you can quickly pass this along to your SBA lender to move into a formal pre-qualification loan letter, et cetera, which you'll need to actually buy your business. Step 3, you want to develop a targeted search strategy. Think about, how am I actually going to find a business for sale? Private businesses, often don't do the best of advertising, et cetera. So there's various ways you can actually find these businesses. One can be through the use of a business broker. Business brokers represent millions of deals across the United States of America. So connecting with local business brokers in your town or neighborhood is often a great way to get started. Calling them, emailing them, saying hi, offering to go get coffee with them. Really, these brokers are very good at what they do, but they do get a lot of inquiries. So you need to present yourself in a serious and professional format so they can take you seriously and keep you top of mind when they do find a business that fits your buy box. You could use off-market search. In the deal world, it's called off-market deal search, proprietary deal flow. These are deals that are not represented by a broker. These might be just businesses that are being run by owners on a daily basis, and you may be able to call them up and ask, hey, are you selling your business? Are you interested in selling? I'd like to buy. While this can be a very great tool to increase your deal flow, it comes with challenges. So using tools like Apollo and LinkedIn, I found are very successful. Really also your local network, tapping into, if you're a part of any religious organizations in your town, clubs, et cetera, these could be great resources to find those off-market deals. And lastly, networking on a daily, weekly, quarterly, and yearly basis is key. Just leveraging professionals in your network will always surprise you on where you can find opportunities, especially those that are unlisted. So let's conduct the preliminary assessments. So if we flip back and we think about the 5-step approach, we have defined our acquisition goals and established the buy box. Check. We have, while we're looking for businesses and thinking about our buy box, we have the capital ready for the 10% to 20% purchase price, which we'll need for a down payment. We've begun to speak with lending partners and maybe a deal team, such as a lawyer, banker, and a QOV provider. We've began our outreach in the develop a targeted search strategy. This may take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, sometimes a year. Now we've moved into conducting preliminary assessments on businesses that we're interested in. So how do we do that? When you find a business that checks your business buy box, you'll often request preliminary financial statements, data that's available for the broker. The business broker or whoever is representing the seller may provide a SIM, which is really a PDF of marketing materials about the business. When you receive things like that, you want to quickly screen those opportunities. Understanding the revenues, expenses, what does the profitability look like, is key. If something doesn't jive well in the SIM, or there's something that you don't like about the business in your preliminary findings, my recommendation is actually to move on. I always say if it looks bad in the sim, it's going to look worse when you find more information out. So if there are these deal breakers in this preliminary assessment phase, my recommendation is to move on. Your time is spent better elsewhere, looking for those deals that really meet your criteria that you're laser focused in. So number 5 is structuring your offer. Once we've conducted preliminary assessment on, let's say, 1 to 50 different companies, if we find a company that we like, now we need to think about how we're going to structure this offer. And when I say structure, how are we going to put together a deal offer or a preliminary LOI that makes sense? Really, it's based on 2 different findings. There's 2 ways to structure it. You structure businesses based on the valuation, which is really using industry multiples. And when I say multiples, it's a multiple of EBITDA, profit, SDE, based on the industry. So there are certain market multiples for landscaping companies, HVAC companies, software companies have different multiples. There's a variety of tools that you can gain market research to see statistics of actual deals that were sold, such as deal stats. PitchBook has a few, to name a few providers. Those are paid services, but you can actually see what private businesses are sold for on, it's updated daily. Once you determine what's a fair market multiple, now you need to structure the deal itself. The deal terms, most deal terms include some form of seller financing. What's the percentage of cash going to be at close? Is there going to be working capital? And if there's any other terms, such as how long the seller is expected to stay on, typically anywhere between 6 and 12 months. If you're going to use an SBA type loan, the old owner can't stay on with the business for longer than 12 months. That is an SBA rule specifically. So keep that in mind if you are going to use an SBA loan. Number 6, once we negotiate and we submit that draft LOI, be prepared to have some back and forth with the seller. The seller may want different terms, such as a smaller seller note. So if you submitted a seller note for 20% of the total purchase price, which, for example, if the total deal was $1 million, the seller note of 20% would be $200,000. They may counter and ask for 15% or 10%. Your first LOI, you should leave yourself with a little bit of wiggle room for negotiation, because rightfully so, a seller who has owned and operated his business for 20 or 30 plus years may have some pushback on some of the exit opportunities and their dollars in mind they had when they do sell their business. So keep that in mind. The seller may have concerns about the timeline and et cetera during this negotiation. So it's often best practice just to address those concerns and be open to discussing those risks during the due diligence period. Typically, due diligence lasts about 2 to 3 months, which gives you ample opportunity to further deepen your relationship with the seller, you as the buyer, and you can discuss some of these specific deal terms once you move into exclusivity in a signed LOI. I'm going to skip ahead. And this is, again, what I spoke on. You want to address those concerns, resolve diligence findings, et cetera. So again, if we define the acquisition criteria, this is a great way, and you can take this slide, which will be shared after the recording, and you can delete these and really just write in your industry and type your business size, and your location. This can be part of your business buy kit template toolkit, which is super helpful. These are great ways to research potential businesses for sale. Other online marketplaces I've used include, platforms such as Flippa, Acquire.com, BizBuySell, to name a few. There may be industry-specific sites to your business. So if you're looking for an HVAC business in Maryland, there actually may be associations which represent, or there's a group of those owners that contribute to that website. Joining things like that is often great for deal flow. And then, of course, connecting with your local business broker is very important as well. So those cover really the roadmap to get from starting your search to that LOI period. If you're looking for help buying a business and you are like Sarah, who was looking to go from a W-2 to a full-time business owner, I would be more than happy to speak with you on a personal level, understand your needs, what you're looking for. I run a small buyers club group focused specifically on Main Street and lower middle market deals. And it's really designed for serious business buyers looking to close a deal in the next 6 to 12 months. So if you think this is a good fit, reach out to me. You can scan that QR code directly in order to learn more information. As part of my webinar series, which is going to be on a weekly basis, our next one is January 16th. This is going to discuss financial due diligence essentials. Think quality of earnings, net working capital, debt-like items, etc. Really things that are performed by M&A CPA accountants such as myself. I lead the quality of earnings practice at O'Connell Advisory Group. It'll be a technical discussion. So if you'd like to learn more, you can scan the QR code to register. All who register, whether or not you can make it, will receive a recording and a financial due diligence checklist at the end. So I'd love if you were able to join. I just wanted to thank you for taking the time and joining today. I'll open the floor up for a couple questions. So someone actually wrote in someone chatted me and asked, what is a typical timeline for buying a business? That's a good question. So I talk to about 3 to 5 searchers every week. And what I tell them is plan on about a year. If you're just starting your search, it might take a little bit longer. But typically it's about a 12-month period if you are searching on a full-time basis. Any other questions? I'll kind of stick around. Oh, someone else just chatted me. The next question I got was, if I have a few businesses I'm interested in, should I submit one LOI or an LOI to all 3? I'll repeat it again because this is actually a good one. someone messaged me directly and said, I'm interested in 3 businesses. Should I submit 1 LOI or 3? How do you handle this and what's best practice? So in in any transaction, these are relationships. If you are being untruthful in the long run, it will come back and bite you. With that being said, if there's 3 businesses that interest you, I would submit LOIs on all 3. It's very likely 1 or 2, the seller might not be interested in your deal. So those could ultimately not move forward, or they might not think you're a right fit. So I have no problem submitting 3 LOIs. If ultimately you can only buy 1 business, you do want to be careful about it. But in reality, the more LOIs you submit, the higher chances you'll actually be able to get one under exclusivity, which means the seller signed it. And then you can move into formal due diligence. So that's a great question, Allie. I appreciate your contribution. Anybody else? Well, I wanted to thank you all for attending. Appreciate you spending a few minutes out of your day. If you would have questions, feel free to email me at patrick@o'connelladvisorgroup.com. I'd be more than happy to discuss more about you, your search, etc. If you do have a business or you're stuck in deal flow or struggling through the buying process, I welcome the opportunity to meet and say hello. If not, I hope to see you at the next webinar about financial due diligence. And best of luck in your deal search in 2025. Thank you. Bye-bye.